The first day I arrived, they handed me a binder sealed in black leather. Inside, 5 commandments, rigid, unyielding, necessary. I was told, follow them without question. Rule 5 is the one that matters. My heart pounded. I couldn't read it yet. That night, something whispered from the walls of my cell-like office. On day 2, I learned my assignment. I rode in a van through deserted tunnels beneath Rome. My job, track and recover lost sins, fragments of guilt that escaped confession. They materialize as objects, a crushed teardrop earring, a bloodstained diary, a child's broken toy. Each item emits a chill only I can feel. By day 3, the rules began to shift. Rule 2 originally forbade me from touching shadows. That morning, the second commandment had morphed. Do not let the shadows touch you. I felt a draft wrap around my wrist at the elevator's edge. I retreated. Something was changing and monitoring me. Day 4 arrived with Rule 5 rewritten again. Never record what you retrieve. I had snapped a photo of a rusted crucifix that bled when I held it. The moment the flash hit, the metal dripped dark oil. The binder glowed hot in my satchel. My pulse surged. I knew I'd broken Rule 5. By day 6, exhaustion weighed on me. At the retrieval site, an abandoned cathedral, I located the lost sin, a charred hymn book. Its pages sizzled in my hands. The binder whispered its command, destroy it. But Rule 5 this morning read, catalog what you remove. My binder conflicted. So did my orders. That night in my apartment, I found the hymn book on my desk again. Terrified, I threw it into the fireplace. Black flames swallowed the pages, but when embers died, the book lay unburned, its hymn now sung softly from beneath the rug. A reminder, these sins won't remain hidden. Day 10, Rule 5 was gone. In its place, follow only Rule 1 through Rule 4. Panic seized me. Without Rule 5, I felt exposed, adrift. My binder began bleeding ink across my palms. The headaches came. The whispering voices returned, urging, bring us more. I confronted my handler in the labyrinthine corridors. She smiled without eyes. You asked for flexibility, she said. We gave you a test. Heaven doesn't tolerate mistakes. She handed me a sealed envelope, my next Sin Retrieval assigned for midnight in a catacomb beneath St. Peter's. At midnight, the catacombs stretched endlessly. Candles flickered, revealing bones etched with Latin curses. At its heart lay a white porcelain mask, smiling intact. I reached out. A clause in Rule 3 said, never look into the sin's reflection. The mask's grin deepened when my reflection appeared. Someone else's face stared back. Rule 5 reappeared the next morning. Seal the reflection before you leave. I trembled through the ritual. Light incense, whispered verses. The mask's smile didn't fade. Instead it fractured. I fled, certain that piece of me stayed behind. By day 14, each rule rewrote itself before dawn. I began documenting them mentally, pattern recognition. Rule 5, the only stable rule until it wasn't. I realized they weren't rules, they were demands. And I was the vessel. During a retrieval at a closed orphanage, I found a music box. Its tune summoned ghost children. I couldn't resist. I wound it. The laughter of lost souls echoed, filling the halls. My binder burned with fever. Rule 5 that day, play their song. I obeyed, and they whispered my name. My colleagues vanished one by one. I searched the cell block, rooms empty, beds unmade. On a chalkboard smeared, Rule 5 is survival. My hands shook. I couldn't tell if I was keeping the sins contained or feeding them. At 80 hours awake, the binder altered again. Rule 5 read, become the sin. My reflection blurred. On the retrieval docket, a sin you cannot remember committing. My mission, recover myself. I went to the chapel mirror and waited. When I touched the glass, I felt the fracture. I stepped through. The world split, oppressing darkness one side, blinding light the other. I, sin incarnate, staggered between. Rule 5 had broken me. I didn't know which side wanted me. I returned clutching a single black feather. The binder lay open. You are the Sin Retrieval. Rule 5 vanished again. I'm alone. The remaining commandments float in my mind, fragments of guidance or curses. Each night, I dream of rules rewriting themselves as they bleed. On day 21, my room had changed. The crucifix above my bed now pointed downward. The air smelled like burnt wax and cold ash. I asked my handler if she had been here. She shook her head. You're being tested, she said. They always test the vessels longer. I tried to leave. I packed my bag, walked through the courtyard, reached the front gate. But beyond the wrought iron bars wasn't Rome anymore. It was a desert, silent, red, with shadows that didn't belong to anything. I turned around, and the monastery was behind me again. That night, Rule 2 read, "Don't blink while they feed." I didn't understand it, until I heard gnawing near my bedside. I lay still, eyes open, muscles frozen. Something wet and warm brushed my foot. I never saw them. I didn't blink. By sunrise, Rule 3 had altered too. Bury the teeth before dawn. I found the marks on my feet, 3 deep indents, spaced like a child's bite. In my drawer, 7 molars cracked and yellow. I dug a hole in the chapel garden, trembling with each scoop of earth. The next retrieval took me to the morgue below the Vatican hospital. The sin was a sealed jar of breath, fog trapped behind thick glass. It pulsed. Inside it swirled screams that had never been released. I couldn't breathe when I held it. Rule 5. Do not listen to bottled sorrow. I failed. I failed. I tilted the jar. The scream leaked into the room, one long cry of pain and guilt. I collapsed. When I woke, the lights were out, and something was whispering from the ventilation shaft. I crawled into the shaft with nothing but my binder. Inside, the air was colder than ice. The whispers continued, but they weren't in Latin or Italian. They were in my mother's voice, reading bedtime prayers from when I was 6. It broke me. A sharp turn in the shaft led me to a hidden room. A library of glass jars, each containing sins in liquid, powder, or gas. Some still moved. One jar cracked as I approached. The binder told me, choose only one. I chose wrong. I took a jar labeled Pride, 1903. Inside was a crown made of bone. It fit my palm perfectly. Rule 5 that day. Never wear what you retrieve. I did. For a moment, I felt divine, omniscient. Then I began to forget my name. The crown bonded to me. My skin blistered beneath it. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. I saw history through eyes not my own. Executions, betrayals, celebrations. Sin doesn't die. It collects. And I was collecting too much. I smashed the crown. Bone dust filled the air. I inhaled it. The crown screamed. The whispering returned tenfold. My binder caught fire. Rule 5 bled through. Dust must not be inhaled. Too late. That night I dreamed of gallows and empty thrones. My new handler was Father Avon. Older. Sterner. He didn't smile. You've touched too many truths. He said, you'll start to unravel. He gave me a key with no teeth and a coin with no face. For when you're ready to disappear. The next sin was inside a well in a remote mountain village. The locals wouldn't go near it. Legend said a priest had drowned there during confession, choked by the sin he was trying to absolve. I had to dive in. Rule 5. Don't surface if it answers. The water was black and thick. I swam downward. Something pulsed at the bottom, a heart-shaped stone still beating. As I reached for it, a voice called from above, "Come back." I didn't surface. Not yet. When I finally emerged, no time had passed. My lungs hadn't collapsed, but my ears were ringing, bleeding slightly. And I wasn't alone. The reflection on the water was still me, but blinked out of sync. It smiled when I didn't. I shattered the reflection with a stone. It screamed, not like glass, but like a dying animal. The water turned red, then clear again. Rule 1 the next day. Reflections are only safe when alone. I began covering every mirror I saw. Father Avon told me the reflections are memories that resist exile. That's what sins are, he said. Not events, but persistent truths. You don't destroy sin, he warned. You only displace it. He handed me a new assignment marked urgent. The location was a prison abandoned mid-sentence. Everyone had vanished during Mass. Rule 3. Never say the inmates' names aloud. Their names were scratched into the walls, each letter still warm to the touch. The air smelled of blood and incense. I found a rosary wrapped around a severed tongue. The sin, blasphemy silenced too late. When I touched it, every prayer I had ever said echoed back in reverse. I dropped the rosary. It slithered back toward me like a serpent. That night, I dreamed of nuns whispering psalms into corpses. The corpses nodded in response. I woke screaming. Rule 5 had rewritten again. Never dream of the buried faithful. But I hadn't chosen the dream. It had chosen me. The binder began humming. It pulsed with each breath I took. When I opened it, a new rule bled across the page in red ink. Don't read what's not meant for you. Underneath, a list of names. Mine was at the top. On day 35, I wasn't given an assignment. Instead, I was told to wait. That was worse. Silence breeds fear in this place. My room grew colder. I began to count the floor tiles. I always got a different number. At midnight, the walls whispered again. You are late, they said. A door appeared where none had been before, white and padded like an asylum cell. I entered without thinking. Inside, it was snowing. A single confessional booth stood at the center. Inside the booth sat a child. His eyes were stitched shut. Forgive me, he said, for remembering what was erased. His sin poured into the air like fog. My skin blistered. Rule 5. Do not absolve forgotten sins. I left him there praying. Back in my room, I found snow melting on my desk. In the puddle, shapes formed, glyphs I'd seen in the Vatican's restricted codex. Sins are not static. They evolve. They remember who retrieved them. And now they remember me. The next sin had a warning seal. 3 wax layers, stamped with Latin prayers. I was to retrieve a relic buried under a deconsecrated church. Rule 2 that morning. Do not let the bells ring. But the wind was already stirring them. The relic was a cracked chalice, once used by a priest who claimed to taste blood in every Mass. When I touched it, I smelled copper. I blinked. My hands were soaked in red. The bells tolled. I hadn't touched them. As the bell rang, the pews filled with silhouettes. They stared at me, formless, patient. Then they began to kneel, as if waiting for communion. Rule 5. Never serve what you don't believe in. I ran. My binder was waiting outside the chapel. It was open. Rule 1 had changed. Don't leave what follows. I didn't know what had followed me until I returned to my room and saw the pew shadows waiting at my desk. I began sleeping in the storage cellar. They didn't follow me there. I surrounded myself with salt and whispered verses I barely believed. Every hour, I read the rules again. Rule 5 now said, ignore the 6th rule. There was no 6th rule, until there was. It appeared one morning, handwritten in my own scrawl. You will replace what you remove. I had taken too much. Now something was being taken back. My memories began vanishing. I forgot my brother's name, then my father's face, then the sound of my mother's voice. Rule 6 updated again. Memory is debt. I was going bankrupt. Father Avon gave me a final mission. If you return, you're free, he said. I didn't believe him. He handed me a candle that couldn't be extinguished and a matchbox that had never been opened. You'll need both, he said. The final retrieval site was the catacombs of St. Pius, sealed since 1883 after the incident. The sin. Hope that outlived its host. Rule 5. Do not light what flickers on its own. As I descended, torches flared without fire. Whispers turned into voices. Not Latin, not any language. Yet I understood every word. They mourned. They accused. They welcomed. I nearly wept. In a tomb marked with no name, I found it. A candle burned on a tongue-shaped altar. It dripped wax onto bones shaped like wings. The air pulsed with promise. I reached for it. The flame jumped to my skin. Rule 6 screamed from the binder. Don't bring back what offers peace. But I already had. I carried the sin up the stairs. Behind me, thousands of footsteps echoed, but I was alone. Back at the unit, the binder sealed itself for the first time. No new rules. No instructions. Just a blank page and a pulse. I knew what it meant. I had become the rule. Now, I wake to find different versions of me in the mirror. Some older, some younger, all watching. Rule 5 doesn't change anymore. It just says, keep going. I haven't left the Vatican in weeks. Or has it been years? The calendar is wrong. The clocks skip. My name tag now reads, Handler. I give orders to someone else. But I don't remember recruiting them. They asked me what Rule 5 means. I couldn't answer. I said, you'll see. It's always better when they see it for themselves. Understanding is a kind of infection. The new recruit cried on their first night. They said they saw their own death in the hallway mirror. I told them not to worry. That's normal. It's the deaths you don't see, I warned, that follow you home. I tried burning the binder. It wouldn't catch. Instead, the flame curled inward and revealed new entries, written in my handwriting from the future. Rule 7 had appeared. If it ends, you've failed. So I keep retrieving. I keep recording. The sins now seek me out, leave themselves on my pillow, in my food, in the eyes of strangers. There is no unit. There never was. There's only the work. You've heard enough. If you made it this far, you've already started hearing whispers of your own. That's Rule 0, awareness invites. And now you're aware. I once thought I was chosen. Now I realize I was simply available. There is no divine lottery. Just vacancy. When one retrieval agent breaks, another is pulled in. I wasn't the first. I won't be the last. The records room has files predating the church itself. Scribes who retrieved sins from places without names. Some never came back. Others came back wrong. One folder contained only a tooth and a note, still growing. Another file had a mirror inside it. I made the mistake of looking. My reflection asked, "Is it still day where you are?" I blinked. It was night. I closed the file. My reflection stayed in the mirror, blinking slowly. I retrieved a sin in the form of a lullaby once. It played from a scratched vinyl record sealed in a vault beneath a monastery. When I played it, the room filled with children's laughter, and then silence so dense I couldn't breathe. The laughter still echoes when I pass certain hallways. The lights flicker to the rhythm of the song. I haven't touched a record player since. Rule 5 etched itself onto my palm that night. Scarred flesh, faintly glowing. But the next day it was on my desk, open to the last page. "You don't get to leave," it read, in handwriting that wasn't mine. "Some sins are alive." One was a house, abandoned yet breathing. It exhaled through vents. Its floorboards beat like a pulse. I entered. Rule 4. Don't answer when it calls your name. But it sounded like my mother that I closed every door behind me. The walls were covered in framed photos, my childhood, my school, my graduation. But none of those photos had me in them. Only the background. I had been removed. The sin inside the house was absence, a void where a person used to be. I felt myself thinning in the mirror, my outline less defined. Rule 5. Anchor yourself with memory. I recited my name, my birth date, my sins. It worked. Barely. I still have dreams of being forgotten. Not by others, by myself. I wake with my name slipping off my tongue like ash. The binder hisses when this happens. One day, it may not remind me who I am. Rule 5. Don't bite down. The recruit who ignored it shattered his jaw. He started screaming Latin in reverse. Then he smiled and jumped into the snow. We never found him. I sometimes hear that bell in my sleep, like it's still ringing through my skull. Sins don't forget the vessels who carried them. They echo through us long after retrieval. The Vatican stopped sending me orders, but the binder continues to assign me tasks. It writes its own coordinates, sometimes in blood, sometimes in salt. I go anyway. I can't stop. The last sin I retrieved was just a name carved into stone. Jonas Benedict, age 9. No location, no date. But when I touched the name, I remembered being him. Briefly, I remembered drowning in a baptismal font. Rule 5. Do not claim names that were never yours. Too late again. I now dream of drowning. Cold water. Priest's hand on my head. Whispers. I wake coughing. The Vatican archivists no longer speak to me. They avert their eyes. Some call me he who retrieves himself. It's not a compliment. It means the line between me and the sins is gone. I haven't seen sunlight in weeks, maybe months. The sky above the courtyard is black velvet. No stars, no moon. Just the sense that something massive and ancient waits just beyond sight. Rule 2. Don't look up too long. I did once. I swear the sky blinked. They say sin is the domain of man, not angels. But what happens when angels sin? What happens when heaven forgets something, and I'm sent to retrieve it? I found a feather that turned to ash when touched. The binder said nothing. No rules. No commands. Just a note. This one was a warning. I'm losing track of how many sins I've retrieved. Hundreds? Thousands? I think some of them are retrieving me. I can't remember my real name. Only the one the binder calls me, archivum. Rule 5. Keep going. It's the only one that remains now. Burned into the first page. Into my skin. Into my waking thoughts. If you've read this far, then I've failed. Because Rule 6. Never leave the record behind. I think I've already left too much. Some nights, I hear knocking from the inside of the binder. Someone wants out. Or wants me in. Rule 5 begins to fade. The pages grow blank. I fear I'm nearing the last rule. Rule 0. There are no rules. Only debt. And debt always collects.